I'm Chamin Wickramarathna as introduced. So I'm planning to go, I think, discuss about cloud lifting legacy applications. First of all, without this mic, can you guys hear? How about endorse? Can you hear me? I'm pretty much okay without mic. Is that okay? Or do I need to use a mic? Okay, I'll use it. Then, yeah. So good evening, everyone. I'm Chamin Wickramarathna. I'm working as software and solution architect in Insight, with expertise mainly on full stack engineering, cloud engineering, and performance engineering. And my when it comes to domain expertise, mainly I'm coming from health tech right now, and other than that, food related technologies, technology solution implementations, and other than that, fintech and some of the blockchain related implementations. So yeah, that's about myself. We'll go ahead with the agenda. So related to legacy application modernization. So I'm planning to go ahead, give a quick intro. So about myself and the I would say our journey. Then legacy application challenges. What kind of challenges we have with legacy applications. Then benefits of like a cloud modernization. So then afterward, I'll come up with a roadmap where we can follow step by step to do the cloud modernization for a legacy application. Then for that roadmap, I'll explain about the approaches. There are like a set of like a well-known modernization approaches and patterns. So I'll discuss few things about that. Maybe in not detail, in some of the things in detail. Then, so tools and technologies we can utilize on cloud modernization. Then, best practices we can follow, CI/CD modernization and monitoring and operating modernization. Those are critical components when it comes to cloud modernization. Then, in the meantime, I do have one case study which I involve when I'm doing sort of like a cloud modernization. So within this particular flow, I'll showcase one of the case study and I'll apply these particular best practices and approaches as well in parallel. So that's the plan for today. So let's start then. Okay. So legacy applications. I'll give few numbers. By 2020. Around 70% of Fortune 500 companies and more than around like 72% of 100 best bank in USA still using legacy application, mostly IBM mainframe frames. So if you have heard about these particular legacy on-premise servers, so still there are significant amount of like compute power running on this legacy application by right now as well. So other than that, there are a lot of statistics. There are around like 220 billion COBOL codes running right now on production. So it's significant compared to the compute power or any calculation we do on production or any I would say services we provide. So that's the reason, one of the reasons when you think about cloud modification or modernization, because there is significant portion available in industry to modernize. Even we talk about all the cloud modification, the cloud native tools and other mechanisms, but still there are significant portion of like a legacy application there which need to be modernized. So that's the reason I picked up this particular topic. So we'll see what are the challenges we have if you maintain legacy application. So this is very general. I would say in high level, I have listed down few challenges. If you maintain legacy application, because the main reason is that those are built on outdated technology stacks. That goes because the technology that was there at that time when it was built, but right now it's kind of outdated, right? So one of the main challenges is the obsolete technology. So the applications are running on outdated framework and technology, right? So due to that, we are facing a lot of scalability limitations, which mean with current trending, or say current industry, we need scalability is one of like a requirement. I would say it's not like a option; it's kind of like a mandatory right now. So most of the scenario, if you go for enterprise scenarios, definitely scalability is a must. So then, at the same time, with these obsolete technologies, you will face a lot of maintain overheads, because it's really hard to find resources, even maintain resources, infrastructure, to maintain this particular application, legacy application. It's a really overhead industry. So cost-wise and time-consuming wise as well. So it's really, I would say, overhead. Then security, again, there's like a significant risk there with legacy application, because I think most of the legacy applications are well, I would say, secured for that time period, but not for the current scenario, right? So right now, I think current threat landscape is very competitive, I would say, in security as well, right? So legacy applications, I think someone can argue that it's very secure on that context, or say like I'll come up with this. So I will have one case study as well. I'll explain what kind of security they have and what kind of threats those applications, legacy applications have as well, and what kind of scenarios we need to consider when we do, I would say, modernize this application. So then, well-known thing is like a limited agility, because those legacy applications I have mentioned, most of the applications are running on mainframes, which are kind of a very legacy infrastructure and monolithic. Then it's really hard to introduce a new feature. So with this case study, I'll nicely explain why it's like a significantly impacted legacy applications, this agility. Because I think as a business, it doesn't matter what technology we are running, right? So for business, it's not features and outcome we are providing. So for business, we need to adapt the changes and provide features to a customer. That's the idea. So to that, I think as a business perspective, agility is one of like a key feature right now on digitalized systems. Then integration complexity. Again, I think in current era, digital era, definitely integration is kind of like a normalized, because I think you will not survive as an individual system or a platform. So enterprise need to integrate with other platforms. You can't build all the features by yourself. There are scenarios you need to integrate with other platforms, right? So integration is very complex, or also most of the scenario is complex and not straightforward on legacy applications. So from the beginning, I'll give one of case study scenario. So I'll not expose the organization. So for credibility, I would say this is a Fortune 500 company. They had this particular system, exactly as it is. There can be minor changes, but mostly it's same, right? So hope Andrews, you can clearly see the diagram. So here, can you? Okay. So here you can see this is one of a legacy system we was involved as well. So to do the modernization. So this was hosted in the IBM AS400. I think it's IBM AS400. These are mainframe computers or servers they call. So whole, I think you can see all the applications. So whole application is hosted on a single mainframe. So within that mainframe server itself, you do have all the logic. You do have the database. If you need to have any file or catalogs, it's there itself, and even the interfaces. The same application or server provide the interfaces as well, UI interfaces. Actually, what they provide is not like a web frame, web view like what we have right now. What they provide is they have like a terminal application. Maybe you have seen some example scenarios. Okay, if you have seen this particular black terminal application interfaces in bank, even Sri Lanka local, there are multiple banks still using those kind of terminal applications. So IBM is funded, IBM we call X series. So they have this kind of ecosystem. Beyond that, in this particular scenario, this particular system, there are user groups who are accessing this particular data and logic through set of like a standalone application. So what I'm trying to say is like there are different types of user groups, and they access the application through sort of standalone application and this terminal application, terminal interfaces. Other than that, they have some sort of a reporting implementation which push out some of the reporting through SMTP server for different user groups. Right? And you can see here, in the legacy system, there are different components, but it's not like there's no specific or defined boundaries for these particular components as well, even I mentioned. So consider these as features of this particular legacy application. So there's no clear boundary within pricing, inventory, invoicing. So it's kind of like there are out of the 200 plus features within the same server, same application. It's really, I would say, the features they are providing is very rich. They can drive. This servers are this mainframe servers are vertical scale. It can handle significant amount of traffic at that time period. So other than that, we have another problem. I think we have multiple tenants as well. So that means the same application was replicated between multiple tenants. Okay, number of tenants are there. So same logic will be duplicated, and not the same user group, but different user groups are using this same kind of like a legacy application with duplicated tenants. Right? So that's the idea about this particular case study, and so far I think this is about it. So I'll go ahead with the concept there. So we'll talk about modernization, right? So we discuss about the legacy application, one of the scenario, then modernization. So modernization, I'll discuss about the benefits of modernization, cloud modernization simply. So why we really need like a cloud modernization. So we previously identified multiple challenges of like when maintaining a legacy application. So opposite to that, so you can see the limitation of scalability. So we can achieve the scalability when we go ahead with cloud modernization when it comes to legacy application, because we can scale our resources and up or I would say we can scale up down as required based on the demand. And with that, you can see cost efficient because we can on demand upscale and downscale our resources. Not only that, there are a lot of other managed services which provided by multiple cloud providers, which we can reduce a lot of costs. If I do a simple example, serverless architecture, right? So if you don't need to have 24/7 running compute power, you can simply go for serverless. That's one of the significant features of a cloud, I would say, era, right? So it was not there in legacy, I would say, legacy infrastructure mainly. Then agility. So when we go ahead with cloud modernization, we can achieve faster development and deployment cycle, which enable quick response to market changes. That means like simply if business comes with different requirement, so we can produce output, I would say, features in a minimal time period or deployment cycles. So that's the idea. I'll briefly explain about these particular sections in later slides. So then security and resilience. So security, I think it's like a ever evolving in current era. I would say security threats are ever evolving all the time. I think you identify zero the object, right? So that's real normal in a digital era in current situation. So with cloud modernization, I would not say you are 100% safe from security threats, but the thing is there are enough options you can secure your application. That's the scenario. Then integration. So integration again, I'll explain with the case study how we can achieve the actual kind of integration, but simply we can, because I think what we do with cloud modernization is we decouple our application or component into like different smaller components as well. With that, we can achieve like a straightforward integration compared to previous legacy application. If I give a simple example of this particular legacy application I mentioned, so it's a ACE400 application. Actually, they have a very limited like, integration API, so I would say possibilities they have. So they have something called bus integration and few other. Actually, at previous time they haven't had like an API implementation. They can't do API implementation, and later they introduced some sort of API implementation. But mainly message buses and some sort of like a asynchronous push out was there. Other than that, integration was very difficult. That's the reason they have built the interfaces inside in their system itself. So most of the time. So because they really can't integrate with the outside systems. So it's possible, but it's not straightforward. But when it comes to cloud modernization, definitely when we do modernize, I'll explain how we can achieve the integration in I would say, more convenient manner. Yep, I think. So I mostly discuss about the technology benefits. Other than that, there are a lot of like business benefits we need to consider, because I think doing cloud modernization is not totally coming from technical I would say back. So it should come from business idea as well. Because all the business holders need to be agreed with like doing cloud modernization, because it comes with a lot of cost and I would say resource effort. So from business side, mainly we can say going in with like cloud modernization is kind of like a strategic move, staying competitive to other competitive product and services, right? Other than that, mainly agility is one of like a very significant benefit for businesses, because they can produce like a outcome, I would say, user experience to their end users in a limited time period. Okay, then so I came up with this particular roadmap. It's very high level and short roadmap where we can follow step by step to do a cloud modernization. So I'm planning to follow the same roadmap to do the modernization which I explained previously, a legacy application into a modernized application. So I'm trying to follow the same, but let me explain step by step in high level. So first of all, define the business case for modernization. So I previously mentioned the decision to modernization, cloud modernization, it should come from business, not the technical. I think it should come from collaboration decision from both business and technology. And then, based on that, if the decision taken, if the decision taken to modernize the legacy application or any existing application, then what we can do is we can assess the limitation of existing legacy system and define what are the limitations. What are the limitations? These are the limitations we need to overcome. Right? Then third, what we can do is identify and priority areas for improvements. That means so in previous step, what we have done is we have identified the limitations. So there can be n number of 100 numbers of limitations, right? So first thing is you need priority. What needs to be done first? Because I think the idea of this particular modernization is not kind of like something we achieve by days or months. It will take significant time, right? So it's kind of journey. So you need to prioritize things. Otherwise, you will not be able to, I would say, achieve anything. That's the idea. So then, the fourth step is choose the right modernization approach. I'll discuss about the approaches later in the next slide. I briefly discuss about the approaches we can follow. And other than that, then when you choose the approaches, you can set clear goals, what we need to achieve, how we achieve, when we achieve. Right? So with that, you can see in the fifth slide, so that means we are developing a modernization plan. So that plan needs to be precise, saying these are the goals I'm planning to achieve by this time, and this is the outcome should be. Right? So it can take time, but there should be phases, and the phases need to be like a timeline and with the proper goal. Then, in sixth step, what we can do is select appropriate technology stack. So what we have done is we have finance approaches, we have a plan, modernization plan, so we know what we need to execute. Now we need to finalize, based on those plan and approaches, we can finalize or select appropriate technology stack. So it shouldn't be like a random, or I would say technologies it should be come from based on the requirement or doing a proper POCs, right? So someone can say, I know this particular technology, I'll pick this for this scenario because I am familiar with this particular technology. That's not going to work most of the cases. That may work because you need to consider about the community available resources, but beyond that, we need to think about the other factors as well. So I'll explain about them as well. We do have a separate slide. Then, then we have technology stack, so we can go ahead with the develop changes, right? So we know the plan, we know the technologies, the approaches. Then it's not only for development, so when after that, as a step, what we need to do is perform application testing and validation comparing to the previous legacy application. Because most of the time scenario, I think in my case study as well, it was very stable. I think I could mention that application was older than 40 Ks. I know because I have seen the exact lines as well, which written around like 1990, beyond 1990 as well. So the application was very, very stable. So logic was very, I would say, stable and precise. So it's working really fine, but the scalability and other factors are the issue. But accurate wise, it's really stable. So, but the thing is, when you do modernize, you can't say I'm partially achieving some of the, I would say, quality and the correctness of the application, right? So it should be perfect. I would say the quality should be 100%, right? Even you achieve modernization. Because that's the idea, right? Otherwise no point of doing modernization. Because the previous application running perfectly, right? Even right now, without scalability. So then the next ninth step is deploy the modernized version. So I think it's simple step. Even I mentioned as a simplest step. It should be kind of like a complex one, because I think we need to consider about there are different patterns when we do deploy cloud applications. So there are different scenarios the way we handle deployments. So I'll separately discuss, but simply what we can do is we need to somehow deploy our modernized application because we have ready with that. Right? So if it is good with testing and validation, then so our application is up and running on production, but it's not done. So our roadmap, the end step is actually not the end step, so it's the recurrent. So we need to evaluate and adjust the strategy as required. The idea is, most of the scenario, cloud modernization is not kind of like a task you will done within a time period. It's kind of a journey. So it's continuous. You need to continuously evolve your application. That's the idea. The simpler scenarios, even you rewrite the whole application, by some time definitely the new application can be legacy, right? By maybe 1 or 2 years, maybe 110 years, right? Somehow it can be legacy for someone else. So that's the idea. So it needs to be continuously improved. So what we normally do is we evaluate and adjust. So there can be scenario, you will go back to the first step, component wise, and do the modernization. Right? So that's the high level roadmap. So we'll try to go into details. What I'm explaining this different steps. So here, let me explain about the modernizing approaches. So I discussed we need to select correct, or I would say perfect, not perfect, I would say the correct approaches based on the requirement of the system. So there are multiple approaches. These are very well-known approaches, cloud modernization or even legacy modernization. It shouldn't be a cloud modernization. There are scenarios you don't actually do cloud modernization. So you actually modernize from a very mainframe kind of application to VM, right? There can be scenario, it's not an actual cloud, right? So it can be on-premise servers, but it's a virtual machine or something, right? So modernization is not only cloud, but most of the scenario, I think cloud modernization is very significant and I would say there are a lot of advantages going for cloud modernization. So I'm mostly focusing on cloud modernization, but there are scenarios I'm explaining which we can't categorize into cloud modernization. So if I give examples, first one. So encapsulation. So what we do is, in encapsulation approach, we actually don't do any movement from the legacy application to a cloud or any different infrastructure. What we do is, we encapsulate the existing logic into specific boundary or I would say scope. So what we can do is data and function can be boxed together and provide access them services through an API. So consider the same mainframe I explained. So we box out some of the component and expose some of the features as API or through a stream or something, right? So what we have done is kind of like a refactoring, but we haven't moved anything, right? So we have done some changes in the legacy application itself. Then the second approach is rehosting, and simply we say lift and shift. So here what we do is, we migrate our application mostly as it is, with like very minor changes, into cloud for greater scalability and performance. So mainly we are focusing on scalability, performance, and the features is provided by cloud. So in this particular approach, we are doing very minor changes. Mostly what we do is we lift and shift our application or component into a cloud provider. Then re-platform, in re-platform, what we do is make necessary adjustment to leverage cloud features. So in previous scenario, this is like simply we move our application into cloud provider without major changes. So in re-platform, we do significant adjustment to application logic to leverage cloud features, which provide by cloud features. Right? Simply, let's say there can be scenarios, some of the managed services, like let's say some database or message bus services. So there can be scenario in legacy application as well. There is an existing message bus, but the cloud provider's message bus is very, I would say, prominent and scalable. So in that case, we'll do minor changes there to cater, or I would say leverage that cloud features. That's a simple example. Then the next one is refactoring. That means we restructure and optimize code for the cloud environment specifically. So we target for can be one of cloud provider and target for that, or multi-cloud scenario as well. So but we target for that cloud features, and we do restructure and optimize our code based on that. Then re-architecture means we simply redesign the application for cloud native architecture beyond cloud as well. So we have this cloud native. In this group itself we call it cloud native. So beyond cloud we discover Kubernetes, containerization. Beyond that there are a lot of technologies, right? So in such scenario, definitely we need to re-architect our components or system, right? It's not like simply re-hosting or migrating existing old logic into a different infrastructure. Then the next approach is rewrite, rebuild. So in this scenario, what we do is consider mostly we will rewrite the component from the scratch without changing the scope and specification. So in this scenario, the scope and the requirement will be same, logic will be same, but we will rewrite using a different language, or maybe the underlying infrastructure will be changed. So there will be rewrite, but mostly the logic and the scope and specification will be same. Then the next approach is replace, which means most of the time, I think the main difference between rewrite and replacement is like a replacement scenario. You actually don't consider the previous logic as well, so you totally replace the application or component itself. So there can be scenario that the replaced one is inbuilt one, or it can be a third-party vendor. So there can be existing third-party vendors providing the same features. So we'll reuse that rather build by ourselves. Then this last one, Strangler pattern, this is kind of like I think the main approaches are the first 7. The Strangler pattern is kind of like one of a pattern we follow when we do enterprise kind of like a large-scale application modernization. So I'll explain how we utilize this pattern. I think most of the pattern will be utilized in our modernization, and I'll explain about the Strangler pattern as well specifically. So here what we simply do is we we are not replacing all the system at once. What we do is we replace legacy component, maybe one by one or multiple. It's not like a whole at once. Right? Okay, then we discussed about the approaches. Then so here I brought one of like a metric. So this was like a came by Gartner 2018, but still it's valid most of the scenario I feel. So this particular metrics, I think, other than this metrics, there are multiple metrics. They have came up with Gartner. They have one of the research paper. So this was very significant and easy to understand as well. So here you can see we have listed down those first 7 approaches, and we have considered cost, risk, and impact. So when it comes to impact, we have grouped into technology, architecture, functionality. So the idea is when you choosing a modernizing approach, we need to consider highest effect and highest value while considering cost, risk, and impact. So cost should be minimal, risk should be minimal, and impact should be higher. That's the idea, right? So based on this particular matrix, I think you can get some sort of high-level idea when you're picking up approaches when we use modernization, because modernization, it will not be a single component most of the scenarios. So in my previous case study that I mentioned, so there were like a 200 plus components, right? So what I'm trying to do is I'm following different approaches for different components. I'll explain later. So in such scenario, it's not that easy to pick which approach you will go for this particular component or small components. So because the idea is that most of the time you don't use one approach for the whole system. So I think this will definitely help if you go ahead with one of the cloud modernization and to pick which approach you should go with. So one of the points I need to mention is mainly approach decision will definitely based on application current state and long-term goals. I think what we need to do is, I mentioned we need to evaluate the current system and what we need to achieve in future. Okay, then yeah, so the tools and technologies we would, I think, tools and technologies which help us when we do cloud modernization. I am not saying these are the exact tools you need to go ahead with. This is just an example. So when it comes to cloud modernization, most of the scenario we need to consider about the cloud provider, one cloud provider. There are a lot I think I have mentioned to you. I'll not go into generally. But then other than that, most of the scenario we go for containerization. If you talk about containerization, I think containerization and orchestration, Docker, Kubernetes, and beyond there are a lot of other tools we can use. Then microservices are there. Beyond microservices, we have serverless, and there are a few other architectures as well. But mainly, when it comes to modernization, we first look at microservices and other architectures we can go ahead with. Then, when it comes to integrations, we need to definitely think about the APIs. So there are different API structures we can implement. It's totally based on requirement. And other than that, DevOps is one of in most of the legacy applications. So in bottom diagram you can see. So in legacy scenario, when it comes to delivery, it starts from waterfall. Then we move to agile. Then we move to DevOps. So right now, DevOps, there are multiple divisions that we call DevSecOps, then GitOps, so and so forth. There are a lot, but in general, DevOps. Right? Then when it comes to infrastructure, so we had the physical, which I go through in the legacy application. Then VMs, right now mostly cloud. Right? So cloud is a very famous. I would say most of the organizations, they prefer cloud. Most of the scenarios, there are scenarios you will not be able to go ahead with a public cloud. So then there can be scenario you need to go for some private cloud or some scenario VMs as well as required. Then, and architecture-wise, the legacy architecture is there, mostly monolithic. Then SOA, service-oriented architecture. Then right now, microservice architecture. Beyond that, we have different, I would say, event-driven, I would say, DDD, we call serverless. There are a lot of architecture, but mostly, I think, microservice is the kind of a modern one of the architecture we follow. Beyond that, there are different architectures as well. So that's the modernization, or I would say timeline of like a legacy modern in real general. Then I'll move ahead to best practices. So we discuss about the technologies we can utilize. It's totally up to you which technology will go ahead. And when it comes to I think when we do the cloud modernization, again these are good to have. These are not like a rules or regulation you need to follow when we do the cloud modernization. So these are the set of best practices you can follow. So first thing is prioritize or component for modernization. So in my roadmap as well I mentioned, so we need to specifically identify which component we need to modernize first. Because the idea is we will not be able to modernize whole application at once. So you need to prioritize what need to be done first and what are the impact to the end user. So then planning and documentation is kind of a must, because planning is must, because when we do cloud modernization, we need to plan properly, otherwise definitely it will be a failure, because there are a lot of other practical scenario. Cloud modernization is a great failure for enterprises. Right? If you don't execute properly, definitely it will be a failure. Then documentation is must, because I think when we do the cloud modernization, it's not kind of like a single team working on that, so there will be multiple teams. So the documentation is kind of definitely a best practice we need to follow, so the teams are well aware about the changes. And one of other best practices, I would say, one of challenge, I would say most of the something we do different. One of reason for failure of cloud modernization is without not considering user experience. So there are a lot of enterprises, they haven't considered user experience, they think about the technology part. So they went through the cloud modernization, but due to the user experience, or I would say the impact on existing user experience, there are a lot of scenarios the cloud modernization was failed. The reason is, one simple scenario is, like an example is like, so the legacy application is there. When you do the migration into cloud, I would say modernized version, you can't ask your end customer or your stakeholder to stop using our application. Right? So the day-to-day work need to be there as it is. It shouldn't be there. So you should think about the user experience while we do the migration, mainly, even after that, after the migration. So then dependency evaluation. So when we do this kind of a modernization, there are, I think, even I mentioned this particular monolithic application, there are sort of like dependencies we need to think about. There are sort of like dependencies in that legacy applications as well. So we need to thoroughly think about those dependencies, which kind of impact to those dependencies, or what kind of a failure it can happen due to these dependencies. Then we have said when we do this kind of like a modernization, definitely we should set smaller modernization goal rather larger one. So one example is like go ahead with a simple component migration rather trying to migrate the whole application. The goals need to be smaller and achievable. Security and compliance is definitely a must and priority. Then continuous monitoring and optimization, I'll briefly explain about them. Then parallel operation. So this is another very good point we need to discuss, because I think most of the one of good, I would say, best practice we need to follow is when we do migrate to, I would say, modernize your legacy application or component, it's really good. There can be scenario you don't need to parallel run, or I would say parallel run, or we go like canary kind of deployment. So you don't need to go for canary kind of deployment. If it is like your logic is fully pre-made, or I would say pre-wise. But if it is just the technologies and infrastructure, if you are migrating, then it's really definitely it's good to run your application parallelly and identify maybe. So normally what we do is on this kind of modernization, we identify like a set of user group where the impact is very minimal. So we deploy the modernized version into that particular group. So if there's impact, it's very minimal, right? So we can roll back quickly and fix them. Right? That's one approach. So running parallel operation, the legacy run and modernization is one of definitely best practice. Okay, then so we have when we discuss about the cloud modernization, I not modernization specifically. When it comes to cloud modernization, definitely we need to think about CI/CD and DevOps. It's kind of like a mandatory right now. So I'll quickly explain what are the major roles which CI/CD and DevOps play in cloud modernization. So when we have a proper DevOps culture and CI/CD best practices, so we can streamline development and testing. So which accelerate the development cycle by automating tests and integrations. And other than that, we can reduce errors and downtime when we do the automation deployment. So other than that, then we can mitigate risk utilizing easy rollback. So I previously mentioned if you go for like a kind of deployment or I would say parallel execution, if there's something goes wrong, we can simply roll back if we have a proper CI/CD pipeline. Right? Then faster time market, this is the agility. So to achieve agility, we should have a proper CI/CD pipeline or DevOps culture, right? We follow. Otherwise, we really can't shorten our release cycles, and feature releases will take significant time on a legacy application. But cloud, if you don't have proper CI/CD practices, definitely will not be achieved that as well. So CI/CD is kind of like a mandatory to achieve the agility and faster time to market. Then improved collaboration. This means like with proper CI/CD, we call GitOps and DevSecOps. What we achieve is like a proper collaboration with development, operation. We call DevOps, security. All the teams will be collaborate properly if we have proper pipelines there. Then enhanced quality and stability. So that's very I would say straightforward. When we have proper CI/CD pipeline, we can monitor our application real time, automate testing. So we don't need to do much like a manual effort there, putting manual effort there. Then infrastructure as code is very again straightforward one. So with DevOps culture, what we do is we automate our infrastructure as code. Right? So it's what we can do is we can minimize the errors when we do any infrastructure changes. Okay, then I'll go ahead with monitoring and optimization. I think this is the last theory part in that case. So, okay, then monitoring and optimization. So I previously explained why I think we in technology slide as well. So monitoring and optimization is kind of like monitoring is kind of like critical when it comes to optimization, because what we do is we bring in monolithic application to distributed systems, right? Most of the time. So when it comes to distributed system, if you don't have proper monitoring tooling setup, so it will be a nightmare to maintain the application. So it's really a nightmare. So that's the reason we need to have proper monitoring tools. So utilizing those monitoring tools, what we can do is we can gain real-time insights, security insights, performance tracking, and proactive issue detection with triggers and all the capabilities. And when it comes to cost and resource optimization, what we can do is we need to implement strategies to optimize cost and resource utilization. So having proper monitoring and so it will visualize you, this is how your resource utilization, whether it's like idling or well performing or overutilized. So based on that, what we can do is we can improve your existing, I would say, cloud infrastructure utilization. Then security vigilance, I think we discussed briefly there. Then performance tuning. So one of, I think this is another point. So I can remember in this particular legacy modernization in one of the case study I discussed. So most of the scenario we assume when we do the migration, it will provide a lot of performance, scalability. With the scalability, performance will be high. But I think practical scenario, what will happen is at the beginning, definitely performance will be going down. And in very, I would say, it's not like in a scalable way, I would say in large scale, but for a smaller scope, you will see your performance will be go down. So the reason is most of the time you don't properly tune your infrastructure, review your code, configuration to achieve the best outcome. So that's one of the optimization we continuously need to do when we do cloud modernizations. Okay, then I think I discussed a lot of theories now. So let's try to apply those theories into this scenario, what we have as a legacy application, right? So we have identified a lot of problems here: scalability, security. Security, I think, let me explain. So scalability, you know, it's not scalable because it's a mainframe server. So only thing you can do is vertical scaling. There will be definitely bottlenecks. So there is a one point you can't scale beyond that. Then when it comes to security, it's secure within that particular scope. But if an intruder comes into the system somehow, all the system, they can access whole system, right? That's the idea. So then agility. So in this particular system, I can remember, I think the way we deploy new changes there's something called hot swap. So what we do is, we have a replication to two mainframes. If you do any changes, you deploy that changes into one of like a replica, and you hot swap that servers in between. So the downtime is very minimal. So that's the way we deploy applications in this particular legacy application most of the time. So I think you can understand what kind of agility we have there. Right? So it's really hard to do a deployment. The idea is we have 200 plus feature components and different teams working on. If you need to do a deployment, it's a nightmare. And you can see there are a number of tenants as well. If you need to do deploy a generic feature, so you need to replicate the same thing on a number of tenants or the mainframe location. It's really nightmare because there are scenarios what they do is they have hard drive, so they actually replicate. They do one deployment into a test environment. If it's done, they copy the same deployment and go ahead with all the status, save, and do deploy in kind of a given time frame. That's the way they do the deployment. And you can see the agility of the particular application. So we have a lot of problems there. Then so we'll try to address those challenges and come up with the modernized one following our roadmap and all the best practices I have discussed. Okay. So here, not sure. I think some of this particular text is not clear enough, but let me try to explain verbally in most of the scenarios. So here you can see the legacy application is here. First, what we have done is go back to the roadmap. So first, from business end, all the business stakeholders identify there is a problem, there is a sort of like a disadvantages if you maintain a legacy application. There are a lot of like improvements or I would say the cost, and as a business, as a service, there are a lot of like competition coming from other products. So due to that, they identify and they go ahead with the decision that we need to do the cloud modernization. That's the first step. Then based on that, we go ahead with the assessment and identify the limitation what we have on our legacy application. So the third step is identify and prioritize areas to improve. So here, I'll go back to the case study. So based on that particular evaluation, what we have, they have identified is there are. I think here, let me speak out. So these are few components I have mentioned. I have mentioned here: pricing, inventory, invoicing, delivery, payment, product management, order, customer management, reporting, so and so forth. A lot, right? So, but they have done is they have identified the critical component which need to be, I think, let's say scalable, right? Or it need to be exposed to end customer as a web application. So in legacy application, we don't have web application, right? We can't really expose a web application. It's not scalable and it's not integratable into the legacy application. So one of the requirement, actually, one of the main reason they have decided to go ahead with the modernization is they have planned to go ahead with the e-commerce application on top of this legacy, actually the system, right? But with the legacy application, they can't do that because there are multiple tenants and integration, agility, all the problems are there to achieve that particular outcome. So what they have done is to achieve that outcome, some sort of a in-customer portal, and other than that, there are other reasons as well. So they have identified all the requirements at the initial phase, what we need to achieve at the initial phase, and critical components which need to be modernized. So pricing is there. So what we have done is for pricing, we have re-architecture. So before going to the component level, in high level, what we have done is rather going for one of the first 7 approaches we have discussed, we went for last standard pattern. So what we have done is we are trying to replace or do modernize component by component. So we have identified some scopes there which we can do modernize, and after that, so for each component we can decide which approach we will go with. But for the whole system, what we have applied is standard pattern. Right? So then, for component wise, we have identified different approaches we need to follow based on the requirement and what we need to achieve at the end of the day. Right? So for pricing scenario, what we have done is we have used. Okay, let me share actual diagram. I think it's not clear, right, for most of the people. Okay, cool. Will you write us better compared to this? Oh, yes, sir. I'll try to zoom in into one of the components so it's a bit clear. Okay, so here what we have done is for pricing component we have followed the re-architecture approach, and we have re-architectured that particular component into a separate, I would say, into a cloud provider. So we were using AWS in that scenario, and that particular component was breaking into different microservices as well there. So you can see there was a pricing API engine, batch pricing, and so on and so forth. There are multiple microservices. Lot of existing AWS services, I would say, managed services were used there. Beyond, I think here I have mentioned only AWS, SQS, SNS, and ECS. Beyond that, there are a lot of managed services were used here. But I need to emphasize here is, so previously we haven't had a proper UIs to user access, right? So what we have done is when we are providing this microservice, we have introduced a web API, web UI as well. So with the time being, we can ask the particular user groups to migrate from the particular terminal from the legacy user interface to modernized web viewer, so which bring more user experience to the end customer. So definitely, I think with this migration, there will be a lot of training as well. So we need to provide training to users how to use this particular application. It's kind of like compared to previous application. But I think with the time we can achieve that, right? So user experience will be higher compared to previous. So in the same time, we have, I think, what I have mentioned as best practices, we have implemented auto scaling, DevOps practices, CI/CD, monitoring, security, and so on and so forth. At the same time, we have achieved most of the advantages I have mentioned previously, which is right now it's scalable, cost-effective, agile, secure, integration friendly, and other than that, it's multi-tenant support. So you can see what we are achieving is here we actually plan what we are trying to remove the tenants. So whole logic will be moved out to a legacy centralized place. So the users can use, say, different user group from different tenants can use the same application, same logic. Data can be changed, so data can be isolated, but somehow we are bringing the application into multi-tenant support. So with that, we can reduce a lot of cost, maintain cost, and scalability, agility, all the factors were considered. Right? Then I'll again zoom into one of another component. So when it comes to order engine, what we have done is we have replaced the order engine component. Here, I replace mean like the reason we go for like other than re-architecture, we went for replace. Most of the logic was redundant or also not relevant in current scenario. So, but they have done is okay, they have replaced the logic as well and replaced the legacy component by a new component. And they were using Google Cloud or AWS this scenario. So it's totally up to you who do the cloud modernization. So based on your requirement, you can pick which technology you will go for that. And in this scenario as well, so the user groups, different user groups, which they utilize, they're using legacy interfaces. They can they were asked to use this modernized version with UIs or APIs. So the user experience will be much better compared to previous. And again, reporting as well, you can see, okay, so other than that, for customer management scenario, what they have done is they have replaced with a vendor solution. So rather going for building by themselves, they have replaced with the third-party vendor. So I'll not mention the name exactly. So they are like a well-known customer management vendor solution. So they simply replace with the integration, rather going for the implement by themselves. Reporting came up with a rewriting. So rewriting, then they could replace the legacy component. Then order engine, what they have done is they have refactored with minimal changes and moved to cloud environment. So similar to that, here you can see we are not following a defined approach. So different approaches were used for different components. So based on the requirement and based on the business requirement and user requirement. So yeah, I think that's what we have generally achieved following all the I would say practices, modernizing practices and approaches. And I think here you can see most of the theories I have explained. I think those were used here, right, when we do the migration. Yeah, there are some of the technical things I have not explained. I think if I give a simple example, you may ask why, I think how you do maintain data, right? So the data need to be single source of truth, right? So if you maintain your data in a legacy, how you replicate your data in modernized version. So there were different, very complex scenarios. We were using data streams to synchronize this data to our modernized version, and we had like a loopback feedback loops where we give back the feedback or any changes we do on modernization until we replace this particular whole legacy application. There are a lot of complex scenarios, even I mentioned in a very simpler manner. It's not that easy, but we can achieve with the proper plan and proper execution and roadmap. So I think that's about the case study. So mostly I think I covered what I need to explain in case study. Okay. So up to now, any question, maybe case study or theories, I would like to answer. Okay. I'll move it. I think I'll give some time at the end of the slide as well. So I have a few slides. Okay. So I think more I'm done with the case study and the theories. So the conclusion I need to give here is to achieve cloud modernization. So to achieve a successful cloud modernization. With the successful cloud modernization, we can achieve all the advantages I mentioned previously, which is mostly boosting your performance, cost cutting, and ensure scalability, agility, and so on and so forth. So other than that, so when we are achieving this particular journey, I say when we are going through this journey, it's not only about technology or it's not about the business. So you need to think about your team and resources as well. So because most of the time when you do this kind of cloud modernization, it impacts to your human resources. There will be a lot of reluctance from human resources. If I give a simple example, in this case study itself, there are a scenario, some of the, I think, inventory management level. So most of the things were done manually. So there were scenarios, most of the things were done manually. So with this cloud modernization, there were a lot of automation done. So there were possibility of getting a lot of resources out of the company. So there are a lot of significant amount of reluctant to this kind of modernization. Right? That's one of very simple example. There can be very large amount of similar example. So then we need to think about them, and other than that, your internal team. So we need to think about the collaboration, training, and knowledge sharing to achieve the successful cloud modernization. Then the next thing is what I need to mention is achieving. I would say so we need to stay agile, which means I previously mentioned. So what we call as new application, so it will be legacy by no time, definitely. Right? So all the time you need to adapt to changes in our business era. Definitely when it comes to businesses, changes are inevitable, right? So you need to adapt and continuously improve. And at the end, what I need to mention is it's not like a overnight task. So it's a continuous journey with growth and adaptation and excellence. So embrace that journey so we can achieve success in cloud modernization. So that's the final conclusion I need to give. So the go through the journey, and it will take some time, but definitely you can success. So that's the idea for enterprise organization. Yep, I think that concludes my presentation. If you have any question, I can answer. Maybe we can have some question later as well. Okay, thank you.